Welcome to Watch Cozy. So today we're charting a course, you could say, around a really remarkable sea, a body of water that's just been, well, central to human history for millennia. Don't just picture blue water on a map. Think of it more like a stage, maybe, where countless civilizations have, risen and fallen, where trade boomed, and where the currents of global power have often, well, converged.
It really is extraordinary. I mean, just think about the number of countries touching its shores, 21, and across 3 continents, too, Europe, Asia, Africa, plus a couple of island nations right in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
And its strategic importance, it just hasn't faded from the absolute cradle of civilization right up to today, 2024. It's been a development hub for major world religions, foundational cultures. It's all happened around this sea.
Okay, so definitely not just ancient history we're talking
Yeah.
about. It's still absolutely vital now. I mean, think about it, drinking water, food, fish, for so many people. But maybe zooming out, the global energy and trade aspect, that really stands out, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
We're seeing, significant oil and gas reserves being found now, which must be pretty important for, say, Europe or Turkey, looking to diversify energy sources.
Exactly. And just look at the trade volume. Something like 12% of world trade passes through the Mediterranean. That's huge. Goods from Asia to Europe, critical oil and gas from the Middle East, it all flows through here,
Right.
which makes those bottlenecks, Suez Canal, Strait of Sicily, Strait of Gibraltar, just indispensable.
Yeah, you can imagine if one of those closed.
The disruption would be immense, global economy level stuff.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting for me. It's surely no accident that big world powers have military bases dotted around. The U.S., for example, near those exact bottlenecks. France, Italy, Turkey. And then you've got Russia's base in Tartus, Syria. They're only one outside the old Soviet Union, right?
That's right. It really highlights Syria's importance for Russia, strategically.
So what's the signal there? What are these bases really about, beyond just showing force? Is it long-term strategy?
Well, that's the key question, isn't it? It's about competing interests, keeping an eye on potential flashpoints. For the U.S., it's partly ensuring that trade keeps flowing, maintaining stability, that kind of thing. For Russia, it's projecting influence in the Eastern Med, maintaining that foothold in a really vital spot.
So what is it about this sea? It's relatively contained. You said 6 Caspian seas could fit inside it.
Yeah, roughly.
So what's the secret sauce? Why has it been such a persistent center of gravity?
Well, geographically, it was just this amazing connector, wasn't it? Asia, Europe, Africa, all linked up. And geologically, yeah, it's younger than the big oceans, the Atlantic, the Pacific. But its real power, historically speaking, came from how it shaped early human life. The climate was just right.
For agriculture.
Exactly. Agriculture, domesticating animals, it was like a civilization maker.
Yeah.
Which is why you see those incredibly early societies flourishing right on its shores.
Yeah, like the Minoans. You can see their influence on Greek culture, can't you?
Yeah.
Architecture, myths.
And their seafaring, their trade.
Definitely. And Egypt, of course. Well, a massive presence along the Med for so long.
Absolutely.
But for early sea power, I mean, you have to talk about the Phoenicians.
Oh, the Phoenicians are fascinating. Masters of shipbuilding, navigation, trade was everything to them.
And their whole system was different, wasn't it? Not like a big land empire, Egypt, Greece, whatever. It was more like a network. Coastal city-states, starting in modern Lebanon, all linked by the sea.
Precisely. A decentralized maritime network, which, you could argue, makes them the first proper colonialists. They set up ports all across the Med. We're talking 4,000 years before the British in America.
Wow. That's a long time ago.
Yeah. And it was more about shared commercial interests than like a single unified empire, different from later powers.
And it's really amazing. Their alphabet.
Ah, yes.
It came about because they needed it for trade, right?
Yeah.
For keeping records efficiently across all those different ports.
Exactly. It wasn't art, it was business. Pure practicality.
Which made it super adaptable.
Yeah.
And then it influenced later alphabets, like the Greek one.
Foundational, really. Changed communication forever.
So this Phoenician dominance, this network, it lasted for ages, over 1,000 years. But then the big land empires started rising, Assyrians, Babylonians, the Achaemenid Persians.
And eventually, those independent city-states got absorbed, became subjects.
It's that classic story, isn't it? Sea power eventually getting overshadowed by consolidated land power.
It often happens that way. Which brings us sort of to Alexander the Great.
Right. Mainly land conquest, but he definitely made his mark on the Med, especially Egypt.
Yes, conquering Egypt was huge. and founding Alexandria.
Alexandria. What a city that became.
Strategically perfect, right at the Nile's mouth, a natural hub for trade, for culture.
And under Alexander's successors, it just blossomed, became this major Hellenistic center. Greek language, Greek culture, unifying the Eastern Med.
A powerhouse. Rich, famous for the lighthouse, the library, attracting scholars like Euclid, Archimedes.
All fueled by trade, especially that vital Egyptian grain.
Definitely. Now, if we shift our gaze westward, we see Rome starting its ascent.
And their big early rivals for the Western Med were the Carthaginians.
Right, who, as you said, came from those Phoenician city-states, modern Tunisia, basically. And they kept that sort of decentralized model, power in the hands of rich merchants.
Sea trade was their lifeblood, connecting North Africa with Iberia, Italy, protecting those routes with a strong navy.
And they weren't just movers, they were makers, adding value to raw materials, trading salt, wine.
And enslaved people, unfortunately, which was common then.
Yes. And they controlled key spots, Sicily, Sardinia, Corsica, crucial islands.
Which sets the stage perfectly for the Punic Wars, those epic clashes with Rome.
3 massive, brutal wars, ending, of course, with Carthage utterly destroyed.
A huge turning point. Power shifts decisively to Rome.
And what's really key here is seeing Rome transform. They started as a land power, right?
Yeah, mostly.
But after Carthage, they seriously built up their navy. To protect trade, to expand, they gradually took full control.
Until they could call it Mare Nostrum, our sea.
Exactly. And their control was totally different from the Phoenicians. Highly centralized.
The Med became the absolute heart of the Roman world, linking all their territories.
Sicily right in the middle, strategically vital.
And Julius Caesar's campaigns just cemented that dominance further.
Integrated everything, language, culture, money, eventually religion, made trade and stability much easier across this vast area.
But empires, well, they don't last forever, do they?
No, they don't. By the 4th century AD, Rome was facing huge pressures, internal splits, external threats, which led to that formal division, west and east.
Right. The eastern part, Byzantium, with its capital in Constantinople, modern Istanbul, that became a major force.
Hugely important, politically, economically, culturally, controlled those vital trade routes, including the gateway to the Black Sea.
But the Western Empire, that fell to Germanic tribes.
Yeah, which really destabilized the Southern Med. They lost control of North Africa, that crucial food source.
And the sea itself became more dangerous again. Piracy flared up.
It did. Trade routes got disrupted, things became less secure.
And then, into this somewhat chaotic situation, in the 7th century, Islam emerges.
Right, and it emerges while the 2 big regional powers, Byzantium and Sassanid Persia, are basically exhausting each other in wars.
Leaving them weakened.
Exactly. So the Muslim-Arab expansion was incredibly rapid. They took key trade routes, major cities, Egypt, North Africa, away from the Byzantines by the early 8th century.
A fundamental shift in the balance of power across the Mediterranean.
Definitely. And you see new important cities rising or flourishing: Cairo, Alexandria under new rule, Damascus as the Umayyad capital, Cordoba later on in Spain.
And these new powers, they wanted to keep those trade routes connected within their own lands, right?
Absolutely. The Umayyad and later Abbasid empires controlled vast swaths of the southern and eastern Med. Byzantium still held on to important bits, though: Asia Minor, parts of Greece, Sicily, southern Italy. So it was a divided sea.
And while all that was happening up north on the Italian peninsula, something else starts bubbling up.
The Maritime Republic.
Yeah. Independent city-states like Genoa, Venice, starting to push back against Muslim naval power.
Exactly. They lived and breathed trade, built powerful navies, and really started projecting their influence.
Even deep into the Eastern Med, right?
Wait.
Like the Genoese having a whole quarter in Constantinople.
Yeah, Galata shows their reach. Sea power was their game.
Okay, let's jump forward. 1453, a massive year. The fall of Constantinople.
The Ottoman Turks, a truly pivotal moment. End of the Byzantine Empire, 1,000 years after Western Rome fell.
And the impact on trade.
Huge.
Oh, enormous.
Yeah.
The Ottomans now controlled those critical land and sea routes between Europe and Asia, which basically forced European powers, Spain, Portugal initially, to look for other ways to get to India and the East.
The sea routes around Africa, leading directly into the Age of Discovery.
Precisely. And it meant the Mediterranean itself became, for a while, less central to those main global trade flows.
So the Med, in the 16th, 17th centuries, the Ottoman Empire is expanding its influence there.
Yes, the Habsburg-Ottoman rivalry plays out across the sea. And this is when piracy really takes off. especially from North Africa.
The Barbary states, Algiers, Tunis, Tripoli, technically under Ottoman influence, but often acting quite independently, they became a major menace to European shipping.
Right, and those European powers, Spain, Portugal, they're focused on the Atlantic now, building bigger ships for bigger oceans.
Largely, yes. The Med got somewhat isolated from the main currents of global trade for a period.
But other European powers start getting involved again later. France, Britain.
Yes, from the 17th century onwards, their presence increases, and Britain grabbing Gibraltar in 1704.
During the War of the Spanish Succession. That was a game changer, wasn't it? Control of that vital choke point.
Absolutely. Gave them a permanent military foothold and massive strategic leverage over access between the Atlantic and the Med. They already had trading interests there, of course, Levant Company, East India Company, but Gibraltar really cemented their position.
And even the early United States gets drawn in. First through trade.
With Southern Europe, the Ottomans.
But then those clashes with the Barbary pirates, late 18th, early 19th century, over tribute and attacks.
Right, that actually spurred the development of the U.S. Navy, didn't it? And influenced maritime law.
Shows how even when supposedly sidelined, the Med remained this contested space.
Always. Which Napoleon understood perfectly. He saw its strategic value in challenging Britain.
His invasion of Egypt,
Yeah.
that was aimed squarely at Britain's route to India, wasn't it?
Fundamentally, yes. Didn't work out for him, thanks to British sea power, but it highlighted the Med's enduring importance.
And the 19th century just keeps seeing conflicts around its shores. Greek independence, Crimean War, Italian unification.
A turbulent century, but maybe the single most transformative event for the Med then was
The Suez Canal.
1869.
Exactly. Suddenly, the Mediterranean is directly reconnected to Asia, the Indian Ocean, East Asia. It slashed journey times, revitalized its commercial importance almost overnight.
Like flicking a switch, bringing it back to the center of the world stage. Pretty much. Then World War I completely reshapes the map, especially in the East. We go from just a handful of states bordering the sea to
21, you said earlier.
Yeah. Though parts of North Africa were still under European colonial rule, France, Italy, Britain.
And then comes the age of oil.
Right. Oil replaces coal. And the Med becomes this absolutely critical highway for transporting oil from the Middle East and North Africa.
Vital for industrial nations.
Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned that German plan to dam Gibraltar.
Oh, yeah. At Lantropa. A wild idea. Dam Gibraltar, Sicily. Lower the sea level, create land, generate power.
Never happened, obviously. Too big, too complex, too much opposition.
Way too ambitious. But it shows people were thinking about the Med's potential on a massive scale.
Which brings us more towards today. The Med isn't just a transit route for energy anymore. It's a source.
Increasingly so. First oil and gas discoveries, but now also renewables, wind, solar, even wave power.
Which naturally means competition.
Intense competition, especially in the Eastern Med for the oil and gas. Egypt, Israel, Turkey, Cyprus are all involved. Political instability makes it even more complex.
And the strategic importance of the energy routes is still paramount.
Absolutely. That's why you still see such a heavy military presence. U.S., Russia, Turkey, France, U.K., Greece, Italy.
Bases all over.
Plus all those undersea pipelines now connecting North Africa to Europe, crisscrossing the East Med.
Yeah, creating complex webs of interdependence and potential friction, different political blocs forming.
And unfortunately, you see places like Libya.
Yeah.
Post-conflict chaos, external powers getting involved, adds another layer of instability.
It does. And we can't talk about the modern Med without mentioning the huge challenges.
Climate change has to be top of the list, affecting water levels, ecosystems, weather patterns.
Definitely. And the refugee crisis. It's a humanitarian tragedy unfolding on the water.
Driven by those huge disparities in wealth and stability between the North and South shores and conflicts beyond.
People making desperate journeys, it's heartbreaking. Yet despite all that, the sheer cultural and historical richness is just staggering.
Oh, absolutely. Millennia of history layered on its shores. Phoenician, Greek, Roman, Islamic, Ottoman, site after site.
And beyond the ruins, there's that soft heritage, you could call it.
Yeah.
The lifestyle, the food, the way people connect across the region.
That unique Mediterranean vibe, it's still there.
So when you really get into it, the Mediterranean is just so much more than a sea, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like a living history book.
Okay.
Constantly being updated with new chapters of trade, conflict, cultural mix.
And its location, its resources, they guarantee it's going to remain a global focal point. You just know it. It really makes you think about that incredible web, historical, economic, political, all tangled together, how it shaped the region and how it still shapes our world.
So what's the lasting impact going to be, from the current energy shifts, the geopolitical tensions?
Yeah.
What does the future hold for this vital, pivotal sea? Something to ponder, definitely.